Many of you have been asking about bare winter trees. I have just discovered I have two best brushes and our absolutely magic tool that will create the most beautiful, fun winter trees you've ever painted. So let's get cracking. I'll be using a 1/4 inch dagger brush, Dagger Striper. This is an S Tole Master, but it really doesn't matter because they're all very similar as long as it's got a very fine point. We have a slanted edge here. Most Dagger Stripers have a fair bit of spring to them. Our next brush is, this is an old Hog Bristle Fan brush. Now I can see it is very old and I have chopped into it with scissors a long time ago. But you can easily do this. You can even try it as a new brush and see how it is, because the technique that we'll be using will be very forgiving. And our third tool is a kitchen skewer. This is already chopped in half. I didn't have another one. We're here in our motorhome and I don't have that much at my disposal. But I'm going to show you everything. Anyway, I'm using some Arches cold press paper, 300 GSM. And the paints I'm using today are by Daniel Smith, and I'll be using burnt sienna and a bit of cobalt blue. You can use Prussian blue, ultramarine blue. You just have to try them out and see what color grey you get from the two. Today I'll be using cobalt blue. Okay, and now we can spray our paints to be ready for action. And let's go. I'm taping my 9 by 12 inch Arches paper into two sections because I want to show you just how important the color of the tree within the landscape is as it takes on the atmosphere around it. Atmosphere is pretty much the color of air and will for the most take on the color of the sky. I thought to myself, there's no point in showing you just a tree on its own, because that tree on its own may not be right in your landscape. And it wouldn't matter if you're doing a sunny day, wintry day, but it all depends on the colors that you're using. And that's why a limited palette is always the best choice, because then you can't muck around with too many choices. This is a Paulina Bright mop brush, just to make the sky easier to paint. I'm going to spray down my paper, and with a little bit of cobalt blue, I'll add a tiny little bit of burnt sienna to it just to dull it down. I'm just tilting my paper enough over a masking roll tape. I've just washed my brush and I'm going to use a little bit more burnt sienna just for some land, and then a little bit more blue, and we can put in a hill. Just something really simple like that. Now, here is the important thing. When you have a landscape of any kind, any color, you need to have your trees in the same color. So what I'm going to do now is wipe out the area of where my tree is going to go, like this. So that was the first important thing. With my fan brush, dipping it into some water, and I'm going to wet some of that. Okay, and now with the same colors that we used for the sky, but of course a little bit creamier, I'm adding some burnt sienna here and a little bit of cobalt blue. Better grayer than browner. And now I'm going to push out with my fan brush, remembering to leave gaps. These gaps are very important for the branches. The marks we've made with the fan brush are suggestions of the fine branches and twigs that you can't really make out. I'm even going to go over the edge here. To keep it interesting, I also need to keep it uneven. I didn't just make 3 arcs like that. I've broken the arc up over here so that it's not all symmetrical. Now with my Dagger Striper, I am again making sure that I have enough paint, so I have to mix a little bit more. Now, with the long edge of the Dagger Striper, I'm going to create the trunk. I'm not going to make a straight one on this occasion. I'm just going to curve it up like this. And as I release, it's getting thinner and thinner and more broken up. Now I'm taking some more paint. I am pushing the brush down onto the actual point. Firstly, when you load the brush, drag the brush in the paint from one side and from the other side. Doing it that way keeps your point sharp. Press down with the tip of the brush, and I'm pressing down quite firmly. And then as I release, look, gets thinner and thinner, and this line can be extremely thin. If you don't know where the branches go, or if you'd like to learn how to quickly master tree basics, check out this video up here in the corner with numerous tips that will really give you confidence painting them. You'll also learn how to create forward and backward facing branches. Let go, turn it, and create some nice zigzag lines that can be broken up and broken up. And you'll want these branches to be especially visible where the gaps in the tree are, because all these other grey bits, they look like branches, so we don't want to overclutter that with lines. It's working out quite well, and you often notice that many winter trees, you see many of the branches just go up. Of course, again, it depends on the type of tree. Maybe they're just more prominent. There are so many beautiful trees around, but there we have it, and give it a bit of land. Now, I mentioned earlier that you might use a palette knife. A palette knife is really handy. The trunk is still nice and damp, so I can actually scrape out a bit of a highlight in there and some of the dark branches. And you know, you can pull in a few lighter ones, and if you have a blob anywhere of you think there's too much dark or the branch has gone too thick, you can just simply scrape it out with a palette knife. So there's one tree. Now let's do another, and we'll use our second tool. Now let's change the weather conditions, or the atmosphere that is, and make a different sky or landscape and see how the tree fits in. Maybe it's a day where the sky seems to be a little bit on the browny side. So I'm wetting my paper, and now I'm going to go with some burnt sienna. So in this instance, more burnt sienna than before, with only a little touch of cobalt blue. So really an opposite scenario in ratios. And now let's make a browny type of sky. Like that, and grey like that down the bottom. And I'll put in some hills. The first thing to do is to lift out the tree with a damp tissue. Mind you, I didn't have to lift out so much sky. It's the mountain that's important. So just go with the flow with that one. Now for this exercise, it is best that the sky is dry. So I have to work my way around that. And what I'm going to do is, with a piece of paper, I'm going to basically cut out a tree like this to protect it. Now I can splatter in some droplets of water. That's why it would be best if the background was dry, but that's okay. We're up for some excitement. And now, why I'm showing you the different skies and everything is because we need to keep the trees in the same kind of color scenario. So here is a gray, so our burnt sienna and cobalt blue. I'm going to add a little bit more of the burnt sienna to it, but you know what, I don't want to run out, so I'm going to add a little bit more paint, a little bit more water. But see, it's a bit brownier than before. This is because we have a different atmospheric condition on this day. So let's think of a tree that we can have here. Well, I don't know, I'll make it a double-stemmed tree. So starting thick, moving up, look at the beautiful strokes that we can achieve with the dagger brush. If we start with the long flat edge with all its width, and as we lift the brush, take the pressure off, it will get thinner and thinner. And chances are you'll also even create this broken brush line, which is really lovely for trees. Or you might be doing the side, a branch, and it comes up. Now the other thing is, we're meeting up with the lovely little puddles that we've created. So using zigzag lines, these puddles are really helping us to get a beautiful sense of atmosphere. When we come close to the outer edge of the tree, we don't want them to be strong at all. We want them to be light and fuzzy, going to nothing. Okay, now let's come in with our magic tool. So this is the splintered bamboo. I am going to dip this into the paint. So the beauty of this is it's so random. I think I need a little bit more water, so I better get my stencil. Like that. And, you know, pretty soon I will need a new skewer. But, you know, there's for $1, you could have a lifetime's worth. And now look at these. Absolutely awesome winter branches. And they can virtually go anywhere. You know, I have been playing with this today, so it's really kind of past it. But you know what? I'm going to see if I break this one in half. So now I'm going to break it in half. And while it's still attached, this is when I'd really like to pull out some splinters. There we go, like that. And now we just separate these. Yes, look at that. Magic. I'm going to dip that into some water and now into the paint. And now nature comes alive. There we go. So there's my magic tool. I'm dipping it in the paint. And if you get any unexpected blobs, it's okay. Just make the most of it. So, for example, here, there might be a bird's nest up there. You never know. And you can take it with a palette knife and go through it. And then with the other end of the broken bamboo, you can come in like this and create some of the stemmy bits. The reason the bamboo is great, it's because it can split so nicely. Plus, it has a fair bit of absorbency, so it's not like a plastic item. It has a beautiful organic feel to it. And what I'm really wanting to show you here is, do you see the different weather conditions? Here it's very much in the browns, and here it's a bit more on the blue side. That's why it's super important that the color of your branches closely imitate the sky. That makes it more atmospheric. And then when this is dry, we shall put in a few darker branches because that'll give the tree even more 3-dimension. Okay, let's put the finishing touches to our trees. I'm going to use my stencil just to splatter some water onto the tree. Like that. I've used my mop brush for that. And now I'll take my special device and dip it into some paint. Now, really, I wish I did have another skewer here to do this again, but it's still okay. I'm sure your skewer or skewers will be absolutely fantastic. And I'd love to see what you create. So post it. Join our community. I have lots of extra tips for our members as well, so join us. There we go, there's that one. And now let's come down to this one using our special stencil again. I've got 2 of these. Might try them both. Here I want a little bit more brown to a little bit more burnt sienna to the mix. And I've got some darker ones coming through, which I like. But it's not thought too much. It's all pretty random, and the less you think about it, the more organic these trees are going to be. So I do hope you've enjoyed this. I can't wait to see what you create. That could be a bird.